Good evening. I hope you're doing well. It is Wednesday night, and I am about to start the last session of A Week in the Mekong Delta. We are on day 7, and we are going to be wrapping this particular scenario up. Just trying to find my other microphone. 1 second. There we go. Now we're all sorted. Let's load up the game and see where we are. So if I recall correctly, we're in the middle of day 7. Actually, no, we're not in the middle of it. We're at the end of it. And let's just see at what turn we're at. 406. So there's 14 turns. And because this is nighttime, it should go by fairly quickly. So what are we going to do? We are going to play through these turns. And then after, we're going to take some time and go over through all the mistakes that I made. That should be amusing. Hello, Rising. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're well. All right, let's take a quick look around and let me remember what we were up to. I think the only thing that we have, all we're doing now is trying to get our units back to the base as quickly as possible. Although I can see that the amount of time that we have left, I'm not going to get the points for biovacking where I should be, primarily because I didn't get there in time, and I know that the cutoff is, I think it's somewhere between 12 and 14 turns. So if I don't have my units within then, it won't have enough time to calculate what I need. But regardless, I'm going to continue doing it anyways. Hey John, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. So I think everything is pretty much moved here. Let's just see if we can move some of these vehicles a little further down the road. No, we can't. So we'll just leave that there. Let's end the turn. Just double checking. We can move our boats. What else? We have a boat here. Again, we don't really need to move it. So let's just end the turn. Let's just end the turn. That's good to hear, John. I'm glad you're doing well. I am also doing well. I'm pretty excited to wrap this scenario up, and I'll go over some of the changes that I've made once I finish. Let's see. So we did move some stuff, and all these things here are in this area where they're supposed to be. This unit here is also supposed to be in here because it's on the road. Same with all these platoons. And here's where it gets tricky. We have to take a look. 3rd 60th, so that can come up in here. I'm not going to bother unloading everyone. I'm just going to get them at least into Dong Tam. They just need to be in Dong Tam. Doesn't care where they are. 4th 47th, that can come into here. And we have a battery. The battery doesn't really matter, but we're going to put it in Dong Tam. If I recall correctly, we are going to start hauling with trucks, supply trucks. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're moving our supply trucks down to here. Let's go into a zoom level 5. Move them down along the road, get them close. The ACAVs, we can put them up into here. We have a truck. Let's load that truck, get them moving. And then all these other empty vehicles, we're going to use them to haul whatever stuff comes out. It's been a trial for sure. Good to see you wrap up tonight. Yeah, I think it'll be good once we're done here. And I don't think it'll take too long. So we have a tank with reconnaissance. And I'm going to assume that the reconnaissance is 3rd 60th, so we can just go down the road. Come up into here. Oh, no. God, not go down the road. These trucks, motorized engineer, they're just going into Dong Tam. Basically, I'm looking for anything that's 3rd 47th, because 3rd 47th needs to go to a different location. Everything else can go into the base. We have some more trucks. Let's see what's inside. 3rd 34th, we don't care about that. That's going to go inside. Third 60th and ACAV unit, they're all going in here. That's a quick one. Oh, I can't go very far, eh? Okay, now let's take a look at these. 3rd 60th. Okay, we can just move them. Reconnaissance. That's ACAV. So this will seem a bit tedious. That's that engineer. We don't have to worry about that. It's kind of scary how few 3rd 47th units I'm finding. Infantry, what's this? 3rd 60th. Actually, you know, we can't just cross right here. Ha! Look at that. That's cheating, but I won't tell if you don't tell. And that's an ACAV. We can also bring that straight across instead of going all the way around. I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner. The trucks, on the other hand, have to use the bridge. So, let's see what's in here. 3rd 47th, finally. Next turn we can unload those. And what's in here? Also 3rd 47th. Let's just change that to viewpoint 5. Oh, for whatever reason, that decided to cross there. That's not right. Now it's stuck there. Let's put a ferry in there. Huh, that shouldn't have done that. Lesson learned. ACAV. And we have a battalion headquarters. Who's that? That's the artillery headquarters. And this is an engineer platoon, which we don't care where it goes. It's just going to go to there. All these are ACAV units. They just go to Dong Tam. And here we have engineer units. ACAV units. Howitzers. We have infantry. So all these 3rd, we can actually just cross right there and come down the road. Here we have infantry. 4th 47th, so they're going to Dong Tam. What is this? 4th 47th, also going to Dong Tam. Well, we have infantry here, so we have to figure out what it is. 3rd 60th, Dong Tam. 3rd 60th, also Dong Tam. Oops. 4th 47th gone. We're going to Dong Tam. A lot of units going to Dong Tam. ARB. Oh no, you went the wrong way. And we have an infantry here. 3rd 47th, that's the only one that is going further away. That's 4th 47th leader. And we have to get this back on the road. Oh, we have a tank up here as well. And that's it. That's all we're doing. So let's end the turn. Yeah, it was a little trick that I remembered that we could do. Why go the long way when we can just use the amphibious capabilities of the M113s? That makes me wonder, do you think that the ACAVs are also amphibious, or are they too heavy to be amphibious? That's a question I have to double check. I'm not sure. Let's just make sure that that's right. 3rd 47th. No, it's not right. That's right. That's right. And I think all these ACAVs, they're going up here. Same with the tanks. This is going to unload because that is going to get loaded to the supply trucks and head this way. These are going up here. Now these can go over here. This is a reconnaissance from the armored cavalry. These are just empty trucks. Let's go move these guys. Too many strength points. All these units are going to Dongtam. These ones are not. Oh, we have to go back. That's so irritating that we crossed there. There's no way for me to get back onto this road unless I go all the way down here, which is 1, 2, 3, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 turns. So let's just go that way because it'll be way faster. And we have a tank to move. And we have ACAVs to move. I think that's it. Thought the wonderful Israelis used the amphibious capability in 1973 to sue it. No, they had ferries and pontoon bridges, mostly. Zero, we have 1 unit that needs to be recover. 5 headquarters, unoverride supply. 3 units low on ammo. Our ammo levels are really good though. They only get reduced by 1, and I think it's every 2 turns. So that's nothing really in the grand scheme of things. We have a unit here we can unload. pick up and get down the road. Let's just verify that this engineer is going up into Dongtam, which it is. Just gonna verify again. 4th 47th. Engineer. These are 3rd 47th. And we have our tank. There we go. Trying to remember what that... Yeah, it was a roller bridge. There was I think there was one of them or two of them. I don't remember how many. Yeah, John, it was a roller bridge. It had a special name, but for the life of me, I don't remember exactly what it was called. And they use most of that too to cross at Chinese Farm. Around Chinese Farm, I mean. Wait, let's go back. Get our loaded truck. Let's just double check to make sure that these are all going in the right spot. 4th 47th. 3rd 60th. 3rd 60th. Engine, artillery, don't care. ACAV units, they're all going into Dongtam. Fourth 47th, that's going up here. And this might be the last 3rd 47th, yes. So let's take these trucks, move them out of the way. Unload. Move the supply trucks. We can load up, I think. Oh, not enough action points. Next time. I think that's all the infantry that we have. ACAV and our tanks on the home stretch. There we go. So we have civilians around, and I don't think they're taking back any of the points that we've taken. Oh no, they did too. Or is that outside? Oh, that's outside, so that's okay. Oh, finally, 4th 47th is biovac where it's supposed to be. Yay! Now, unfortunately, we only have 9 turns left, so we're not going to get the points, but at least we did something right. So that's encouraging. Yeah, that's one new thing that I added, is to give you a little notification that says, "Hey, they're operating in the right spot." So that's a good thing. That makes at least you have an idea of, yeah, this is right. You know what I should do? I should double check these motors to make sure that they're right. Yes. 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 Okay, that's good. Oh, and I clicked the wrong thing. And we'll grab our tank. Hey, Stipe. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Just making sure we don't have any units still on the boats. I don't think we do. No, they're all unloaded. Perfect. 9 more turns of nighttime. 9 more turns of the scenario. That's it. Infantry. Oh, I should have crossed up here. And the last tank. We're almost where we need to be. Let's just zoom in here and make sure that everyone's inside Dongtam. Yeah. Long journey, but in brackets, nightmare question mark coming to a close. Yes, no kidding. No kidding, indeed. But we're almost there, which is kind of exciting, actually. This is a what unit? 3rd 60th, so we can put that in there too. This needs to go into the base, but it's not amphibious, so it has to drive all the way around. And lastly, our tank. How about our other units? Oh, everyone's there. I'm just going to zoom out, see if there's any Americans around that I'm not taking account. I don't think so. Arvin? Oh, that's just a boat. We don't care about that. There's no green. There's no Americans there. No Americans here. Well, I should rephrase that. No alive Americans there. Man, we took so many losses. It's just crazy. Arvin. Just spare trucks. Arvin headquarters. These are all Arvin troops. No, I think that's it. Okay. Those are probably just civilians meandering around. Third 47th is now, so all these, this is what's remaining of Third 47th. We'll take a look at that after. And the ACAV Third 6th, B Third 60th is where it's supposed to be. Oh no, that's an infantry company. Actually, I have to double check that to make sure that I've labeled that correctly, because that might actually be 3rd, 5th Armored Cavalry. I can write that down. Check. B 3rd 60th. Should be 3rd 5th Cav. Okay. Let's end the turn. I'm scared to look at that because that's just terrible. Okay, and now we have all of our units. Sorry. Yeah, we have now all of our units where they should be. Let's just do some unloading. Oh man. Oh, there's a lot of stuff in here. Holy crap. Holy, there's so much stuff. So, what do we have left here of our 3rd 47th? Is that the headquarters? That's the battalion headquarters. So let's highlight the organization. All right. So what do we have? 1, 2 platoons. 3, 4 platoons. 5 platoons. 6 platoons. 6 platoons out of a company that would have 12 platoons. But the strength is significantly less than you would look at that. That's down to 1, 3, 4, 1, 4, and we got slaughtered on 2. Just brutal. We have a lot of the heavy weapons, with the exception of the machine guns. But I think they are over at Dong Tam still. Yes. So they have machine guns over here, and the recon units over here, because that's where we put them. Man, that battalion got destroyed. That's a tough one. Poor guys. Is our tank? Yes, our tank is here. So let's see if we get notification for that. There's a lot of stuff in there now, eh? Oh, now 3/60th is where it's supposed to be, which is good. And a 3/60th is where it's supposed to be. Yeah, so that B is supposed to be changed to a B335, not 3/60th. So everyone's where they're supposed to be, which is good. But I got decimated. Now I'm way overstacked. Just trying to unload everyone so it'll be easier to visualize later once we start going through everything. Actually, we can move all this infantry out. That will help. Still in the base. It's just, you can tell the base boundary is that berm on the edge. So even though these guys are sitting on the edge, they're still technically within the pointing, or within the count. And Playboy bunnies. Isn't that the truth? Yes. These guys deserve it after that utter chaos that they have been through, let me tell you. They really, really do. All these guys are out. Those guys aren't carrying anything. Actually, let's just highlight loaded units. Do we have such a thing? Loaded transports. Yes, we do. How handy is that? We have a loaded helicopter. We have a loaded ACAV. Let's just zoom in a bit. We have a loaded truck. We have a loaded ACAV. Loaded truck. There we go. So now everything is totally unloaded. Let's check over here. Yeah, everything's unloaded. Now we can do an analysis easier. So now we'll just end the turn. Hey, Compass Rose. Good to see you. We're just doing the last handful of turns here. We have everyone, well, what's ever remaining of everyone back in the bases, I guess. We don't really need to do much. I could spend some time organizing, but let's not bore you to death. Just flipping through the last few turns. There's literally 3 more turns left. And then we're going to talk about this. That's just civilians meandering around. We don't really care about the civilians. Well, yay, we continue to hold something, and we gained a whole bunch of points. These are free points. Just every 25 turns, you're supposed to be getting some points, just because you've held the main bases, the Arvin bases, the American bases, and that's that. So it's turn 420. This is the very last turn. We're just going to save it, press end turn. Time is reached. All right. Here's the scariness. So we took a lot of losses. Too many losses. I mean, our total points basically matched what the VC lost in points, even though they doubled our points, or doubled the amount of losses. We did gain a lot of points, though, in the sense that we took a lot of event points from them, and we captured a lot of objective points. We were securing them quite frequently, which is good. Does confetti and brass band music start up at the end? No, it doesn't. There should be a major victory thing, though. Actually, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Does a video play? A video will not play because I have actually, which install is this? Let me check. It's this one. So I have the no video and no music to play. So normally there would be a major victory thing that would pop up, but I have these two turned off, so they don't play. But let's go back into that. No rockets from the VC on the last turn. Yeah, no. That's not good. Victory dialogue. Okay, this is what we were looking at before. So, the victory point conditions are skewed in this particular playthrough, as I explained before. During the first handful of days, or first 3 days, I guess, I was getting far more points than I should have. And in that sense, I have probably double the points that I should actually have. There are a couple of things that I've done with the Lua file since I've played this, since I started playing this, and one of those things is the VC will now get points if they occupy any area, any part of any area. So, for example, if they own, say you've taken this one day, or here, let's go back here. Say you've taken area Gamma here. It's a small area. It's just like this coastal area. If you're not paying attention and they've taken one of the objectives here after you've gone through and cleared it, or you decided I'm going to take all my Arvin units and go send them to help my Americans because my Americans got damaged or destroyed or whatever, you need the extra Arvin strength. So you didn't leave little troops like what I've done here as fire brigades to go back and collect any units that are around that I need to go back and deal with. If they come back, say on day 3 or 4, and take this objective from you, then you are no longer in control of area Gamma. So every X amount of turns, the VC are going to collect points for you not occupying that entire thing. That'll go for any area. So their point accumulation will end up being quite quickly, especially if you ignore the areas that you've been to already. already. So it would be very wise for you to keep an eye out on specific units and whatnot, or objectives, to see, have they flipped or have they not flipped? And if they haven't flipped, what can I do to make sure that... you see, there's some VC units that didn't get activated. So, one other thing is that there's die rolls for the VC on what they're going to do. In some cases, for example, here, there is a sapper company that was triggered to go and attack something, or supposed to be triggered, but there was a die roll that says if it doesn't get that particular die roll, it's not going to do anything. So, at some point, these sappers could have gone into my Tho, could have gone at attack this artillery, they could have gone collecting these objectives. Who knows what those guys could have been doing? But they didn't get triggered, so they just sat there. Which makes, I'm grateful for that, because more than likely they would have hit something that would have caused me a massive pain. And if you've been watching this for a while, you would have seen that I got my main base attacked by sappers. And I lost helicopters, I lost infantry, I lost a lot of things defending the base against that sapper attack. You don't need to keep a security... That's a good question. Compass Rose is asking. So basically you need to keep a security force in each section for just-in-case situations. I don't think you need to keep a security force in each section, but I would keep a security force in the major towns, at least. For example, there's a lot of stuff here, but none of it's useful because it's all fixed for the most part. So I would keep, when you get Arvin reinforcements, maybe you keep a company here if you don't need them elsewhere. I found that I ran out of infantry really early in the game to mines, to IEDs, to poor tactics during my assaults, and I didn't have enough infantry, so I needed to keep all my Arvin troops, with the exception of these ones down here, which I left little fire brigade groups just in case, but I put them in strategic locations so that if the VC were going around taking points, I could quickly go. And also note, if you look carefully, they're all mobile troops, right? They all have trucks. There's enough trucks to move, the fire brigade to where it needs to go. As well as, if I needed to, I can call in some helicopters to transport, because there are some landing zones around. It's just a matter of utilizing the ones that you need the most. If you look carefully, you'll see they are strategically placed. There are logical places, but there's another company here. This whole company here didn't get activated. They could easily have been activated and maybe attacked this outpost, maybe gone up to here to deal with this military post that I had taken before. Who knows where they could have gone. I'm going to be reviewing these companies to see, hey, look at this. There's another company here that didn't get activated. It's just defending here. So this VC unit could have gone back into here, taken this village on the day that I'm not even there. And there's nothing here that I could have done to stop it. There is a VC unit there, but he was defending there, so that's logical why he's there. He was expected to be destroyed. But yeah, there are VC companies around. Quite a few of them, actually. So that actually could have turned out harder than we experienced in this, and it was already hard in the sense that there was a lot going on. Look, there's another VC company right there. Now, that was that ambush that we ran into. So yeah, they were protecting this road, ready to, but we decided to go up north instead. Man. These are all just civilians, civilians, civilians. A lot of civilians around. Interesting. So yeah, so that was one thing that I've changed. And I will change these things now too, just to give them some less likely to be stationary, but actually give them a task. but maybe the task will change depending on the turn. The other thing that I did is, based on this experience, for both this particular scenario and Bin Long, I found that in some cases I couldn't capture the objectives during the daytime. And, my day would be from, say, for day 3 is 121 to turn 160. And I found that I didn't have enough time to secure all of the areas that I need to secure. I'll get points for the areas that I do secure, but if I didn't secure that point or that area up until turn 160, sorry, no, not 160, it would be turn 154, no, 156, because I need X amount of turns in order to get the points. So if I hadn't secured the area by turn 150, whatever, I would not get the points for that day. So what I've done is that if you happen to secure the objective, if you decide not to send your troops back to the base, but focus on trying to secure the objective, I will allow you to have half the points that you would normally get. So instead of 2,000 points, you'd get 1,000 points for securing the objective that night. If you do it any time beyond that, it doesn't count anymore. You don't get any points for that. You still need to secure it because the VC are still going to get points every X amount of turns. John is asking, so how does that affect logging requirements? Seems the USA has to get back to base. How do you cover the potential pen areas or penetration areas, I presume, from the VC grabbing areas? You can't. At night, you can't. Or you use your VC, or you use your units that are not bound by the logging rules. And so, what units are those, you ask? Well, let me tell you. In this particular scenario, the only units that you have to be concerned about for logging are the infantry companies, the headquarters, the infantry companies, including the mortars. You don't have to worry about the heavy weapons company, which usually consists of machine guns and the mortars, and you don't have to worry about the reconnaissance units, and you don't have to worry about the artillery. So for this one, I keep the logging pretty simple in the sense that you just have to worry about your infantry companies and the leaders that go with it. Wow, this one got totally decimated. Hello. Oh, it's the VC turn. That's why it's not going to show. So yeah. That being said, you can create a small task force with some armed trucks, with some mortars, with some machine guns, and use those for patrolling the area and making sure that you have a little task force that's good to at least engage some VC when they're around. The other thing to do is, as I've done down here, for this scenario, the Arvin units, they can be positioned wherever you want. So here I've left units here in case I saw that some of the points are being taken. I could quickly mount up this company and drive to anywhere that I need to go. The other thing is you want to make sure that you have an engineer around as well. I don't think there are any Arvin engineers down here, so I had to bring an American one. I did bring back the American one to where I needed it, so because sometimes the VC will lay mines. You have to be careful of that. I ran into so many mines from the VC on roads that I had cleared already, even though so the VC came in after and laid mines, which was a total pain in the rear, but it's one of the facts. You have to make sure your roads you're open all the time. So that's a big thing. So for example, here with this battalion here, highlight the battalion, and we'll see that all these units are part of that unit. I just have to worry about the infantry companies with the mortars that go with it, but anything with the heavy weapons company, all these, the recordless rifle, the machine gun, and the mortars that are attached to that, I could attach some ARVN units, or I could attach the reconnaissance units and keep them as my mobile task force. Because you do have the trucks for it, if you want, or you can also use the supply trucks for it at your own risk. Bin Long, which I'm going to play next, is more complicated and not as forgiving. The area is much, much bigger, and there's going to be much more to deal with in that sense. You'll see that I have a lot of units here, and this would be really, really stacked had I had all my other infantry with it, because I missed all three of my battalions are under strength, significantly under strength, as you saw. The only thing that really saved me are all these ARVN reinforcements that I received, and even then they got hit pretty hard, especially in these battles where we were fighting against trenches, against bunkers and things like that. This is a really good scenario for learning tactics on how to defeat bunkers and trenches, and how to deal with, concentrated VC firepower. Obviously, the way to do that is by using your own firepower, using as much of it as you can, and trying to bring in as many powerful troops as you can. At the point where I was fighting this, my Americans weren't up to the task anymore because they were so depleted. So I had to let the ARVN do that. They did a pretty good job. I was able to secure all the points that I needed to throughout the scenario. And for that 7 days of intense combat for the most part. Some days are obviously easier than others, but there were some really bad days. One of the worst days for the ARVN was when they decided to attack Bentray, and they did so in force. I lost almost a battalion worth of ARVN regular troops. That sucked. That was a bad day. The only ones that are left are the ones that I've scrounged around this particular airfield here. But I had to wait patiently because everything was fixed. I had to wait very, very patiently for them to get shot at first, hopefully not take losses, hopefully not get disrupted, before I was like, all right. Then, I can run away, at least form a defensive line until I can get some more reinforcements. And the only thing that I was able to bring in was some American troops. I had to fly them in, though. So, yeah, it was lots of things that you were thinking about and like, hey, these are challenging times. This is a lot of things that you have to think about when you're playing this particular scenario. Bin Long will be harder because there's way more things to think about, and you're going to be having far more units. How do I keep track of units? That's a good question. I keep track of my units, or I try to at least, on more of a higher level view. So for this particular scenario, I know I have 3 battalions that are operating the field. I need to understand where everything is, but I need to know what battalion is where. So for me, when I'm deciding, someone asked me before, how do you keep track of all your units? Well, the simple answer is, at this particular scale, I'll keep the headquarters of each battalion in mind. I know that this battalion has to operate in this area, so that's how I work. That's going through my head and saying, I know this battalion is going to be operating in Area Z, Area Nu, Area Mu, Area Omicron. So I know in this part of this particular territory, of this part of the map, I know this battalion is going to be here. If I sort out my units properly. Do I do that all the time correctly? No. But ideally, I know my headquarters is here, therefore all my other units are going to be there. The 2nd Battalion might be operating further to the north. It might be operating in Area November, for example. So I know that in my mind, I just see a battalion marker here, and all the green units that are with that belong to that green marker. Simple as that. And then the 3rd one could be operating over here in Area Zeta or Epsilon and Beta. And again, I know that this green mental marker is the battalion that's operating for all the green units that are going to be operating in here. Where that gets complicated is if you're not checking to see where your units are regularly and you mix them up. Or in one case, I sent some 3rd 60th units down south when I was operating in this sector. I was operating down here because I needed the extra infantry, and my ARVN were busy doing something else. So when that happened, I had 3rd 60th units, I think they were down here, mixed in with a battalion that they shouldn't have been with. So I screwed up my whole logic methodology in my head by having units where they shouldn't have been. Mainly because I'm only playing this on Wednesdays and Sundays, and I had forgotten that I attached companies to another battalion, even though I should have written that down at least. But yeah. Generally speaking, try and keep your companies close to your battalion headquarters. This tool here, by highlighting the headquarters and then selecting highlight organization, will show you all the units underneath that organization. Again, I can't do it now because I'm in the VC turn, so it's too late for that, unfortunately. What else? Logistics. Yeah, so logistics is important in this scenario, as well as bin long. Logistics, every day, each battalion has a logistical task. And not only that, every 2 days, there's a logistical task for the brigade itself. And that will come from the north. So that comes up here, and you're supposed to take that brigade headquarters or the brigade supply and bring it down to Dong Tam so that at least you get some supply. But each day, each battalion is going to be tasked with making sure that whatever area that they're operating in, they're getting supplied there. Unfortunately, you have to do that by truck in this scenario. Actually, for all the scenarios, you need to do that by truck. That means you need to have ferries on standby if you're operating south of the main river, or you have to make sure your roads are clear, depending on where. For example, on day 2 or 3, I had to take my supply units from here and drive them all the way along here to get to Kai Lei and use the supply there. And you have to keep in mind that once your supplies get there, they have to stay there for I think it's 4 turns or 5 turns, just for the battalion headquarters, in order to collect the points. Some days, you're not going to do it. You're just not. Other days, you're going to have 100 points all the time for both ammo levels, which is great. But I think it was day 5, I was scraping the bottom. I was waiting patiently for my brigade supplies to come in to give me 40 ammo levels for everything, because I was already at 40 and my artillery was not, I was running out of ammos. My headquarters weren't in supply. It was just tough. It was a really hard thing to do. Also, from the start of this scenario, it was pre 1.2. And pre 1.2, all the units, the naval units, were moving so slow. It was brutally slow. That was fixed with the 1.2 update. Speaking of updates, if you haven't updated already, this was made with the last turn here was made with 1.22. If you don't have it, go get it, because it has a lot of important updates. You should always just double click on the update button just to make sure that you do have the latest update. It is a living game. We will continue to update it, especially as I continue to play. Just some more questions. Let me see what they are. John is asking, can you, during the gameplay, attach one company to another battalion or brigade or headquarters? You can't attach it to the headquarters, but you can send it to the other headquarters. Now, the problem with that is that you can't get supplied from that headquarters. So it's still going to trace your supply back to the parent headquarters. There is a way to do it in a way. You can do it in Bin Long because I included a task force headquarters with each battalion. So if you wanted to, you could send your task force headquarters with your company to go and attach it to another battalion if you want. So that battalion, that task force battalion headquarters is usually one strength point, but it'll provide the supply to that company that you have outside of your main battalion headquarters. This one doesn't have that because I didn't feel the need for that in this particular scenario because the areas are much smaller. The battalions are operating more together in the same areas, so it wasn't necessary. The other thing you can do is move your brigade headquarters closer to both of those battalions, which will improve their ammo levels, generally speaking. Typically, in this whole entire scenario, I left my brigade headquarters in Dong Tam. Would it have been more efficient to send that brigade headquarters out into the field? Yeah, maybe. But if you had been paying attention, I get a supply bonus by leaving my brigade headquarters close to the supply caches. These supply caches. So had I moved my brigade headquarters away, I might have lost supply bonuses throughout the camp, throughout this particular scenario, by having my brigade headquarters not located near these caches, because these caches are the things that are constantly supplying, and every X amount of turns, I don't remember exactly how many, I'll get a bonus of 10 or 15 ammo points just by leaving them there. So it's do I do that or don't I do that? Or I could just load them all up and bring them with me. There's that, but then I run the risk of getting ambushed and losing all my supplies, which the VC will get a bonus for. And I will get... Actually, that's one thing I'm going to do as well here. I'll explain in a minute. So if I would have lost that, the VC would have got points. I'd be losing points. I'd be losing ammo. So it's like, yeah, I can do that, but do I want to do that? In this case, I didn't want to do that. Will I want to do that for Bin Long when we get there? Maybe, because there's going to be a lot going on. And my battalions are going to be spread very, very thin. I'm going to want to move companies around where they aren't needed. Oh, sorry. That's work. Huh. Okay, next question. Compass Rose. So there's no scenarios where you're forced to supply via airdrops, helicopters. Actually, there is. Operation Starlight has where you fly in from the airfield and you bring it to a landing zone and you get a supply bonus by doing that. But you have to load up one of these supply caches. You have to load up one of these supply caches and fly it to the specific landing zone. And if you own that landing zone and the supply gets there on the ground, then you'll get the supply bonus. So that is an example of a scenario that has you supplying via air. I could do that for this, but I wanted the challenge of you driving and maintaining your main supply routes, because me, being a terrible and evil designer, set ambushes for you that you need to deal with that, right? You need to make sure your roads are clear. That's why I didn't have it so that you had to move your helicopters with supplies. I specifically wanted you to use trucks in this particular scenario. And I think it's the same for Bin Long. I kept it, everything is on the ground. Everything is on the ground in that sense, with the exception of some of your reinforcements. Some of your reinforcements will come in by air. But we'll worry about that when we get there, because that's not till like day 5 of Bin Long. And Bin Long is going to be a tough one. Tough indeed. So, one thing that I did, or that we started with, is that we have a lot of flares and we have a lot of smoke. So one thing that I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to add depending on how your supplies goes, and depending on if you lost any supply trucks, you're going to be given X amount of smoke and X amount of flares per day. Now, will they refresh after, or will they accumulate? I haven't figured that out yet, but at least every day you're going to get, say, 20 of each. Say, all right, so you have 20 to use that day. But the idea that I have going in my head, I just have to figure out how to code it, is that, say, you have 20 on day 1 of both, and nighttime comes, nothing happens, you didn't use anything. Theoretically, they should be still in your cache of things for tomorrow, and then tomorrow you should get another 20 for both, or 10 flares and 20 smoke, or whatever it's going to be, whatever random number that I'm going to throw in there. It might be a random number that, hey, you get this many today based on the supply situation. The other thing is that if you do lose a supply truck, or if you lose, one of the supply caches or something like that, the amount of smoke that you get dispersed to you is reduced. So if you lose a supply truck, for example, 1 SP of supply truck, you might lose, instead of 20, you'll get 19. Or if you lose 2, you might get 17. Or another random number. You might lose, 1, 2, 3, or 5 of your smoke that you would have for that day because you lost the truck or supply cache. Can you carry over troops with their experience from one scenario to the next? Not yet, no. But that is something that we are going to be doing when we revise the linked campaigns. That is a major wish list item for me. That's a good question, Stipe. That is one thing that I would like to see, is that if your experience levels, get to a certain point, that you're right now there's a class system. So these are infantry B class. So as you're playing through various scenarios in a link campaign, I can change these platoons to go from C to B to A. But ideally what it'd be nice to be, if you're playing with this particular platoon, that it's part of A company, whatever, 1st Battalion, blah, 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 whatever, that as it gets through to a certain point, after you've collected or accumulated an amount of experience points, then yeah, you should be able to have better firepower, or you load faster, or something like that. But that's a complicated thing, so we're not sure how that's going to happen. That would be interesting when you then have green troops reinforcing the losses. Yeah, that does get taken into effect. So one thing with this particular scenario that I didn't include, since I didn't realize that it wasn't a capability when I first designed the scenario, is that I can bring in a 2 SP unit that is part of the platoon that can be used for reinforcing platoons that have been reduced. So, did you know that we have some special little tools? Where are they? I have to remember where they are. Where are they? Units. Yes, here. So there's a merge button and a reduce button. So a merge button allows me to take a platoon. I don't remember exactly how to do this, but it has to be, for example, the 1st company platoon. The 1st platoon from a company. It usually has the headquarters, and if that got reduced down to, 2 or 3 or something like that, I can add another platoon, as long as it has less strength points, to that, and merge it together into one. So I can have a 3 SP headquarter platoon with another platoon from the same company. It has to be from the same company that you can add it and merge it into one platoon. So it gives you a higher strength point 1st platoon. There's a section in the manual for that. Let's just take a look. Manual. I don't remember what all the rules are, but there's a whole bunch of conditions. Can be done, but there are conditions for it. let's do a search. Merge platoon. Aha, here. So 2 platoons must be from the same company. They must be the same basic unit type, so I can't load a mortar platoon up into an infantry platoon. You just can't do that. They have to be the same type. So they have to be infantry 67Bs or whatever they are. They have to be the exact same type. If merging from the company headquarters or with the company headquarters, the headquarter must be higher up in the unit stack, as that's where the SPs will merge into. So what does that mean? Let's see if we can find an example quickly. I can't move anything, unfortunately. But yeah, okay. Say that this was another infantry platoon, and say it was at 2 strength points. So you'd want to have that at the top of the stack, because this platoon is going to merge into this one. Assume this is an infantry 67B from the same company. Obviously it's not, but pretend that it is. And if that's the case, then I would select them both, and I would press this button. And if this is less than, this would have to be less than 6 strength points. Say it's 2. And then once I did that, and I pressed that button, then I would have a 3 strength point infantry 67B, if that makes sense. Here is the reduction, or the reduce thing. So an example of when that is useful is if you have a 6 strength point unit, say this was 6 strength point, and this helicopter was only, or no, let's say I wanted to load it into this ACAV. I can't, or I wouldn't be able to, because the ACAV is not high enough, right? Not enough strength points. So I could reduce that to 2 from 6, and then I'd be able to load into this ACAV. So in certain situations, I wouldn't use that all the time, but in certain situations, it's important that you have that functionality. So, you know, if I had a supply truck over here that was 6 strength points, but I didn't have anything that was 6 strength points to take it back across the river, I could reduce that supply truck by a couple to find an ATC or something like that I could, or pontoon ferries that I could load into to take it back across the river. So that's a very useful tool. With the merge tool, that's super useful. Now, that is one thing that I could do with this particular scenario, is offer, one day you get a 2 SP platoon that is strictly used for reinforcements. Now, I would have to put a limitation on that, because I don't want to give you an extra platoon. I want you to use that as reinforcements for your existing company. So I would create a bounding box for that platoon, and if you went outside of that, because you'd have to bring your company in order to bring it back to base to get your reinforcements, I would put a bounding box around this base, so that if that particular platoon left the base, you'd be penalized. And you'd be penalized every turn, for doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Does that make sense? It makes sense in my head. Does that make sense to you? I thought you demonstrated a different reduce function in this scenario. Ha 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 ha. That kills me. Yeah. That's the easiest way to reduce unit, is just by going to find some Mekong units. That's mean, but hilarious at the same time. So yeah, I think that would be one thing to consider for this particular scenario. That means that's a lot of revisions for this, though. So if you reduce a unit's strength, can you increase it back up to its original strength later once you reduce it? Or it stays that way for the rest of the game? No, it'll stay that way for the rest of the game, unless you use the merge button with a lesser strength platoon. So yeah, once you reduce, it's gone forever. So you can consider, in that supply truck scenario that I was suggesting, you literally torched your trucks in order to have the rest of the platoon fit on the ferries to get across back across the river. Now, if I had another supply truck on the other side of the river that was 2 strength points, for example, I could then merge it, as long as it was with the same company, I could then merge it into that platoon to bring it back up to 6 strength points. Do I need to do that? No. But you could. So, why didn't I do any merging in this scenario? Mainly for assault purposes. It is more advantageous for me to have multiple platoons, even though they're way, way under strength, attacking from different directions to give me the assault bonuses than it is to have one platoon at a 6 strength point, only assaulting from one direction. So in my assaulting, I want to get into the best possible positions by either flanking it or surrounding it, and with that I need more platoons. So it didn't make sense for me to merge my companies into a smaller number of platoons, if that makes sense. That's why I kept a lot of my platoons at 1 or 2 SPs instead of saying, maybe I should do a 4 SP unit and be done with it. Not only that, some of these areas are fairly large, so it allowed me to take my company and disperse it to collect the objectives faster than using just one unit. Because again, I only have so many units, and they all have these tasks to do. If I don't have the troops to do that, or if I am trying to collect a whole entire area with one platoon out of the company, then we have a problem. I'm not going to be successful at all. And all it takes is to be ambushed by an RPG team. As you saw, I got hit by an RPG or a bazooka. It took 2 companies of units to take out a freaking bazooka in a bunker, because I didn't have the right tools, didn't have the right strength. But yeah, little things like that. You have to. So for me, it makes more sense to have more platoons, even though they're reduced strength, just so I can get the advantages of surrounding when I can, and cutting off any isolating, because isolating the units will also help me get a better, result when I'm trying to assault them. It'll reduce their ammo levels. It'll reduce, hopefully, their possibilities of being resupplied. Yeah, just makes my life a lot easier in the grand scheme of things. What else do we want to talk about? One of the lessons that I did, so I ran into 2 different ambushes when I was securing this road, or not securing, after I had secured this road. I ran into 2 different ambushes and I lost some troops just by those ambushes. That being said, I would probably in the future leave some smaller teams, like a reconnaissance team or something like that, where I could have eyes on the road to see if I'm going to be attacked, or to see where the units are. Also keep in mind that I'm going to revise some of these VC companies, and give them more options, in the sense that I don't think that one of the options should be just sitting around. I think they should be doing something. I might change where they start, or what time they start, what day they start. Maybe this area here was clear, quote unquote clear, because obviously I didn't see them. It was cleared on day 5. So they've been sitting here for 3 days. Day 5, day 6, and day 7, and they didn't do anything. So on day 7, while you're busy dealing with this, I could have this company coming up and cleaning out this area, or attacking these ARVN units, and then you have to make a decision. Oh crap, I have to go and help them. Or you suffer losing all these points. So assuming no tunnel system in the area, if VC unit is surrounded, their supplies will not be replenished, correct? Yeah, that's correct, Stipe. Yeah. If they're isolated, they are isolated, unfortunately. Or fortunately for you, if you're attacking them. What else? The other thing, helicopters. Man, I lost my helicopters. I mean, I kept most of my transport helicopters, which was good. I lost a lot of the Loaches, and I lost all my gunships. Why? Mainly because of my tactics. And my tactics were, if I found a VC unit, I was getting in low. The gunships themselves, especially the ones in this scenario, they're all snakes. And snakes, you need to be 1 hex away, firing from the nap of the earth. So you're most vulnerable. And in many cases, I had thought I had drew enough opportunity fire from the Viet Cong that I would be safe going in or flying in. Unfortunately, that wasn't always the case. So when you're flying low, right in front of your enemy, odds are good you're going to get a shot down. And in that sense, I lost a lot of helicopters that way. Would I send my gunships against entrenchments and whatnot again in this particular scenario? I don't think I would. I think, even Berto mentioned before that maybe keep them on station, but only start attacking units that are out in the field, because they're going to be the easiest targets. And that's probably what I would do with this particular scenario. Just because this scenario is more difficult. You don't have a lot of units out in the field. Having your helicopters close by and on station is good, but doing what I was doing is probably not the best tactic. That'll be useful for when I'm flying, Cold War era or Middle East, and I have a gunship with missiles. I'm going to be flying nap of the earth and popping out and destroying tanks from a long distance. But in this scenario, I'm too vulnerable to small arms fire, flying nap of the earth, trying to get the most bang for the buck. Yeah, how many did I lose? I think it was 12. 12 gunships in total. 16 gunships. Sorry, I lost 16 gunships. Better to use airstrikes for that and snakes and hogs for the field. Yeah, absolutely, Stipe. That is exactly what I would do, is utilize the airstrikes. But you have to be careful with the airstrikes too, right? I ran out of airstrikes very quickly. And you have to be careful of... Let's see, can I actually grab the... No, I can't, because it's the VC turn. I can't show you the dialogue. You have a huge pool of aircraft to choose from, which is great. But you don't want to be using all your napalm, for example, on day 1 or day 2, because, as you saw, the worst was yet to come. So you want to be using your rockets, you want to be using your bombs, but is that going to be as effective as napalm? No, probably not. Maybe the bombs will, depending on the aircraft. Also keep in mind, each aircraft has a different attack strength, right? Because its bomb load is different. So if you're attacking with Phantoms as opposed to an A1, the Phantoms are going to have a higher kill probability because they have more bombs for you to drop, for example, or heavier bombs or something like that. So they're probably going to be more effective. So that's a whole different level of things that you're thinking about, whereas before you just call an airstrike and you hope for the best. Well, now you can actually think about what you want to attack and the type of target that you want to attack. So if you want to, if you see a unit in a paddy and you think he's not going to move, then maybe call in a rocket armed weapon, right? The other thing to keep in mind is if you see an aircraft that has multi-strike, that means it'll fly in once and then it'll go back into your pool so you can use it again, which is super handy. Now, not all aircraft can do that. Certain aircraft can do that. You have to keep an eye out to see which ones will do which. Usually the smaller ones that are designed for more close air support. Those are the ones that you're going to be able to utilize more than once. A1s, I think, for example. They're smaller airframes. They don't have as much punch, but you get them twice, which is kind of handy. And that's something to think about as you're going through your close air support list of, okay, which aircraft do I want to use? In this particular case, I want to call in bombs, maybe with an A1, because I know that aircraft is going to be put back into the pool instead of using an F4, which I know will not be put back into the pool. Stipe has a question. How do you get an overview at the beginning of the scenario? How many airstrikes and what type are available? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, in the last half hour, I'm going to open up Bin Long, and I will show you exactly that question. So, but for 5 more minutes, we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to go into Bin Long, and I'll show you exactly that. Based on what you guys have seen, is this scenario hard enough or easy enough as an introduction to the A Week In series style of scenario? Is this a good teaching? Because that's the idea behind it, is to teach you how to, play these new type of campaigns. Because that's what this is basically a campaign, right? And if you don't like it, what don't you like about it, and what can I do to make it more interesting? The game kicks my ass. I don't know about others feel. Yeah, well, obviously the game kicked my ass too. And I made the thing, so don't feel bad. Ay, ay, ay. Thank you, Rysine. I appreciate that. I think it's fun. I think this type of campaign is something that I've wanted for the campaign series for so long. I can't even tell you. Like, ever since the 90s, the late 90s, it's like, I wish I could do this. And it just wasn't possible. Does take time to figure out for me. Yeah. And for me, too. And that's... Did you know... Hey, speaking of the manual, did you know that there is, I think... Hang on. Section 4. No, Section 9. I just have to find the right section. Sorry, 1 second. At the end of Section 9. Yeah, look at this. So, this is an overview map of the entire Week in Bin Long area. So, you could print this piece of paper out, this sheet out, page 253, and use that as part of your planning. This is my first campaign series game, so learning curve is a bit steep, but well worth it. I'm glad you find it worth it. And yeah, once you start getting into this, you get hooked. I mean, I've been hooked on this for how long now? 20 years? How crazy is that? But it's my favorite game. It really is. And I just love playing it. It's crazy. Compass Rose is saying, this is a huge scenario, and there's a ton of stuff going on all over the place. I'd be interested in trying such a scenario, however. I normally played only small to medium-sized scenarios in the past. And that would, yeah. So don't go into Bin Long then, Compass Rose. You definitely want to stick with this one. And the nice thing about this one is that it is kind of a small scenario. It's a long scenario. It's a big map, but the amount of things that you're doing is small. So if you think, how many small scenarios, or you're only playing with 100 units at the most, right? So there's only 3 battalions, and typically there's 3 missions for each day, which isn't that much, especially if you use something like this tool here. If you use this and you print it out, it's like, okay, I need to worry about these things on day 1, then okay, that's no problem. Like Area Alpha, for example. That'll be your day 1 mission. There's also one here for Bin Long, but if you look in your install, in your manuals folder, oh, sorry, let's use the right one. There's this. So this is a PDF that you can print for Bin Long, and you can use this to mark it up. And I've also included all the units as markers that will be included, that you'll be dealing with during the campaign. So it'll help you keep track of where all your units are. I didn't feel that was necessary for Bin Long because there's only 3 main battalions that you have to worry about, plus the 2 armored cavalry units. Compass Rose had another question that I skipped over, but I will find it again. Are you still 100% into this game, or have you started messing around with the next DLC? I have started actually messing around with the next DLC. There are... I'll show you. Is it here? Yeah. So the next DLC is going to be 1968 Tet. And there's a whole bunch of scenarios already. I have to script them, though. And I'm going to build another... a week in. I'm going to build another a week in scenario for that. I just haven't decided what the context is going to be. I was initially thinking the Quezon battle, but if you do the research on the Quezon battle, besides the hill fights, which I've already covered, the actual battle itself was kind of boring, in the sense that, yeah, there was action happening, but a lot of the action was just artillery strikes. And there was isolated fighting, but the isolated fighting was happening weeks apart. So it's kind of hard to have a weekend about Quezon, because nothing is really going on. A good tip on using the map printout would be very helpful. Yeah, absolutely. I would do that for both of these scenarios. If you're new to the game and you're having a hard time keeping track of your units, I would totally do that. I've been playing this game so long, I'm a very visually aware person, so I know where my units are, generally speaking. Obviously not always. But, I know functionally this battalion is here, this battalion is here, this battalion is here. And I can quickly, since I made the maps, I can quickly look at the map and say, okay, this is Maito, this is Dongtam, this is blah, 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 right? Hopefully the capability for arc-light carpet bombing. Oh, there is already. So, now, none of the scenarios have B-52s, but there are B-52s in the game. And when a B-52 strikes, a B-52, for example, if this was a VC unit or whatever, just imagine this. If this was a VC unit here, and I could spot that hex, and a B-52 was called in, that would target this hex plus this hex, this hex, this hex, this hex, this hex, and this hex, all at the same time. So it's a massive carpet bomb, literally. How freaking cool is that? That is beyond cool. Totally. But that's not what you're going to find in most of the scenarios. But the tools are there. Yeah, right, Stipe? Excellent indeed. That is just beyond fascinating. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this another time, but I'm going to load up Bin Long, and we're going to talk about Bin Long. I'm not going to start it today. I'll start it on Sunday, but we're going to talk about it since you guys are here. It is absolutely devastating. You're right, Compass Rose. Did you also know that there's a whole whack load of tournament scenarios and play-by-email scenarios that you can try? These tournament scenarios are insane. The China versus American one, they are designed so that it tells a story. Each one tells a progressive story, but how each side plays the scenario will be different every single time, and you have no idea what's going to happen. It's quite fun. It's insanely fun. But anyways, that's not the point. We are looking for a weekend Bin Long. They are a challenge and a half. That's what they are. So, I always play Computer Fog of War. I always play with all the optional rules, with the exception of variable visibility. The only reason why I don't play with variable visibility is because I want the historical visibility. If you played a scenario a whole bunch of times and you want some variety, that's when you add the variable visibility. Otherwise, just leave the visibility alone. Alright, prepare for this. This is a monster scenario. I'll read this when we play on Sunday. I'm not going to go into that right now. We're just here as an overview and to show you what this is all about. So, this scenario is the more complicated a week in scenario. This is it starts off small. It starts off with you operating with 2 battalions, but it grows into where you're operating almost 9 by the end of the campaign. By the end of the day 7, day 6, you're operating 9 different battalions. So there's a lot going on. This map is huge. Let's take a look. It's 225 by 400 hexes, pretty much. We have 3 major towns. Well, 4 major towns, I guess. We have Loch Ninh in the north. We have Anlock. We have Conthan. And we have Kai something. What is it? Lai K, sorry. Now, in this scenario, you start off with 2 battalions. One is going to be operating in the north. The other one starts off down here at an airfield, and you have to transport this up to Anlock because that's going to be its operating area. You'll be able to do that with helicopters and by truck. So you have to decide, how am I going to do that? Which units are going to be doing that? And not only that, because I'm a total bastard, you have an area on day 1 that needs to be secured. So you have this entire area here that needs to be secured to make sure that your operating base at Anlock is safe. So you need to transport troops up here as quickly as possible to start taking over these points. Now there's lots of time during the day to do that. It's just how efficient you're going to be. The other battalion that you're starting off with is up here. So this is a regular infantry battalion, but it has D troop from the 1st of the 4th, which is an air cavalry troop, to help supporting you. This day 1 mission is you need to secure all of area Alabama. A lot of it is already secure, though. You can see that there's a lot of ARVN flags there. But you also have to secure area Louisiana. The other thing that you need to do in this particular thing is build a fire base. And so here you'll see there's landing zones, and they're all marked with a name. And I tell you where you need to build your fire base. So in this case, I'm telling you need to build a fire base around Louisiana 5. What is a fire base? A fire base is something. So I need to build basically 2 trenches in that area in order for me to constitute that as a fire base. How do I build a trench? Well, we know how to build improved positions. Basically anything can build an improved position. But in order to upgrade that to a trench, you need a bulldozer or you need a construction platoon. Now, me being the bastard that I am, I gave you those, but I put them all the way down here. So I gave you a dozer and I gave you some construction platoons right there, for example. So you have to decide, how am I going to transport my troops from all the way here, all the way up here, to build that fire base? So the fire base will be, you build the trenches, and you have to bring in an artillery piece in order to classify that as a fire base. And not only that, more than likely, the core units of your battalion are going to have to be spending the night at that fire base. And because I'm just that nice of a guy, you're going to have to supply that fire base. So you're going to have to go in there, on top of everything else that you have to do. You're going to have to drive in there with supply trucks to ensure that during that day your supplies are getting where they need to go. Which means you have to clear a road. You have to protect your supplies, because who knows what's out there. I mean, I know what's out there, but who knows what's out there. And you don't know what's going to be happening during the rest of the day, right? You don't know where the VC are going to be attacking. You don't know where they're all going to be. You don't know what's going to be happening. And as with the other one, would not be fun without delivering MREs as well. Damn, I know, right, Stipe? You know, you have to... There's a lot to this scenario. Like, this is the main highway through here. This here. This is QL13. This is your lifeblood. And eventually, you have to clear that and maintain that throughout the entire campaign, because all your supplies are going to be running up and down this road. Let alone you're transferring troops up and down this road. Yeah, you'll have helicopters, but you're not going to have helicopters enough to transfer everything. And here's a look at the amount of helicopters that you start off with. These are the helicopters that you start off with. You have enough basically to transport 3 companies, almost 3 full companies you can transport. But you need those helicopters to be split up between your battalions, because in order to operate efficiently, you need to have at least one flight of helicopters that's big enough to transport 1 full company of infantry in each of your battalions. Not only that, you have to worry about protecting them, supplying them, making sure that they're operating close enough to your areas. On the bright side, I've given you 2 different types. Also note, you have Chinooks in this scenario, which is awesome. I've given you 2 different types of gunships. I've given you snakes and hogs. Hogs are freaking awesome. They are my favorite gunship by any means. Here's a hog. Why are they my favorite gunship? Because if you look at this, they have a standoff range. So my most bang for the buck is Napa the Earth at 2 hexes away, which makes me a lot less susceptible to light arms fire, which means I'm less likely to get shot down. That's a good thing. That's an important thing. And look at that value. It's a 63. That's huge. Of course. So that is good for hitting bunkers and hitting trenches. It's not awesome, but at least you have a chance. Unlike the snakes, if we go find a snake. Do we have a snake up here? I don't think we do. No, they're all hogs. So here's a snake. Let's look at the specs for that. The maximum attack is at 1 hex away, but it's only a 44. So it's at like 75% of the other attack helicopter, which is okay, but it's not great. So I wouldn't be, which we learned in Mekong, we don't want to be using this to attack trenches. We don't want to be using this to attack bunkers. It's okay to take out infantry that have been removed from those places or out in the open. They'll be devastating with those, but anything that's entrenched, any type of entrenchment, pretty pointless. Chinooks, they're designed to carry your heavy weapons, not heavy weapons, but heavier equipment, like the dozers and the construction engineers, as well as the artillery batteries. You have 1 Chinook that has a 6 strength point, which is good for hauling your artillery batteries. What does that mean? This is like a freaking unicorn in this scenario, which means if you lose a strength point with that, you're not going to be able to haul your artillery batteries or your construction platoons, because they need to have a full 6 SP Chinook in order to haul. So that's one thing you have to be careful of. So if I lose 1 SP from that, that means all my gun batteries that I'm going to be transporting with that need to have it be reduced by 1. That makes my artillery batteries a lot less effective. That's not good. So this scenario, as it gets progressively throughout the day, there'll be a lot of reinforcements coming on. You'll be utilizing, you're going to be doing a lot of movement. This will be a lot of movement and a lot of capturing. I've designed it in the sense that the first 3 days are pretty easy because, yeah, you'll run into some things. Yeah, you might get some attacks happening. But for the most part, it's just you understanding your units, understanding the capabilities of your units, learning how to build a fire base, and transporting troops, deciding on where things are going to go and how they're supposed to operate. But at that halfway point, you're going to be having a really bad day. Yeah, don't lose the Chinooks or you'll be having a lot of bad days. You're absolutely right, Stipe. Thanks for tuning in, John. Really appreciate it. I'm really glad that that you're here and you're asking the questions. It really helps a lot. You'll notice that there are Arvin troops throughout. Yeah, actually, the other thing you'll notice is that there's a heck of a lot of VC points everywhere. So, even this main through, this is Highway 13, QL 13 right here. And you'll see that it is all VC held. So you don't know what you're going to be getting into at any point in this scenario because everything is VC held except for the main towns. Right? That's it. And even this highway, there's some VC units here, or not VC, some Arvin units here, but they're pretty much stuck throughout the scenario, unless there's a couple of triggers that might release them. You will get a couple of Arvin battalions to help you out with your stuff, but generally speaking, you're on your own. It'll be an American operation for the most part. This battalion here does get released, and this Arvin battalion down here does get released, but not until like day 4. So don't count on them anytime soon. Otherwise, every day you'll be basically getting a brand new American battalion. It'll be operating in its own area, and you'll be covering this. Eventually, you'll be going through basically this whole area, this entire area. So what's the purpose of this scenario? The whole premise of this particular scenario is that the VC, or COSFIN basically, the high command of the North Vietnamese, had decided to attack all 3 of these main towns, and you're up here trying to prevent that from happening. How are you going to prevent that from happening? By going out into the field and hunting them down. That's what this scenario is all about. If you fail at that, up here, for example, you're tasked with going in, clearing out the areas. So, what does that mean? More than likely, your average player is going to go in and just go after the points, collect the points, and then be done with it. But if you don't go around and look for the VC, even on day 1, it's going to haunt you later on. Because those forces that are there that you didn't find are going to come back later to haunt you. That's a huge issue. Huge, huge issue. It's something to think about. But at the same token, do you want to find them early in the campaign? Because odds are good if you find them, they're going to be in an entrenched position. They're going to be in bunkers, which means that you're going to be taking heavy casualties in order to take them out. Or you're going to be wasting your precious airstrikes. Or you're going to be wasting your precious smoke. Or you're going to have to bring in more artillery or something. Do you want to suffer all those casualties in the first couple of days of the scenario? Or do you just want to risk it and hope that you'll be able to deal with it later on? I don't know. For me, it's a tough call. I mean, as the designer, I know what's coming, and it's scary. So it's like, do I want to risk my losses? I don't know. I definitely don't know. I also know what's coming on later. There's a lot that's going to happen in this scenario. So, but again, keep in mind, the first handful of days, or not handful, sorry, the first 2 days are just getting to know the scenario, getting to know the landscape. You'll run into some VC, and keep in mind that most of them are going to be main force VC, so they will be challenging. It will be a fight. When I fight, it'll be a fight. That being said, I want to make sure that I'm keeping my units as tough as they can be. And let's take a look. What kind of units are they? Let's turn off the labels. Second 28th Battalion. Let's highlight it. So these are B-class 1965 units. They're not very good. I mean, they're okay. They still have an attack strength of 11, which is alright, but they taper down really quickly, just based on the arms that they have. Their morale is 6. That's not great. That's not awesome by any means. Oh, something that's new. Ha 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 ha. So I have actually two things that are new. One is the Civil Affairs unit. They don't do a lot in this scenario. They just have a couple of places where they need to go and be there for X amount of turns in order to get points. But the main thing, the most exciting thing is this. These are LRRP units. They're long-range reconnaissance patrols. Look at the attack strength. They're just crazy great, but short range. The main thing is that they're reconnaissance. They have the recon, they're special ops, they're commando. They can do a whole bunch of great stuff. The most important thing, though, is that they have a task. You'll see, if you look over here, you'll see Cambodia. These commando units, so here you'll see the border. This is the border between Vietnam and Cambodia. Those LRRPs are tasked with operating inside Cambodia. They're the only units that can do that. You can fly across, yeah, no problem. You can even load up an infantry unit, a regular infantry unit, and fly across, but you can't land in Cambodia. The only unit that can land in Cambodia is the LRRP unit. So you see that there's for example, there's a landing zone here. So I have to load up one of those LRRP units and land it here. And then what it's tasked to do, one, is stay in Cambodia and go around and look if you can find supplies, anti-aircraft units, infantry units, and then call in strikes to deal with them. The longer that an LRRP unit is operating in Cambodia, the more points that you're going to get. So if it stays in there for 100 turns, or 200 turns, or 300 turns, you'll get points for that. Additionally, you'll get points if you destroy things while you're in there. So it's one of those things that would actually happen, and you're doing this in this particular scenario. We'll go through that eventually. It's pretty cool. Enemy. There's a lot of stuff back here that if you find it, you can destroy it. The problem is, now again, me being me, I have patrols out there that are hunting you down. So it's not just a matter of a walk in the park. You have to figure out exactly what you're looking for and do it stealthily. Keep in mind, it's a recon unit, so you can move stealthily. It has commando capabilities. It's less likely to get spotted when it's moving, etc. But you still have to worry about it because the units that are patrolling for you are company-sized units, and if they spot you, you're going to have a bad day. Absolutely. But yeah, there are a number of supply caches. There are supply units moving on the trails that you can hunt down if you want to get extra points. And not only by doing that, if you destroy a supply unit in Cambodia and it doesn't get to where it's supposed to go in Vietnam, that reduces the effectiveness or the ammo levels of the Viet Cong and how that affects their main attack later on. So it's a little part of the game, but it's a fun part of the game. It's a really, really cool addition, I think. Now, on my first playtest, my LRRP unit had lasted about 40 turns before it was hunted down, and it got eliminated. But in that time, I did find a headquarters, and I did find 2 supply units that I was able to destroy. So, lots of potential, lots of fun, and I would do different things with it if I could. Oh, it's huge possibilities with the LRRP edition. I agree. I think it's fun. You're right, Compass Rose. You're right, Stipe. That's a very interesting and fascinating addition. So I'll tell you now, my first day I will be using my LRRP units. Probably not how I should. I'm going to be using them to help secure the points for the first day mission, primarily because the LRRP units are the fastest American units that I have in the bush. So I will be using them to secure points that are hard for my infantry to get because I only have a certain amount of infantry. But then after that first day, I will send them out doing their mission. I haven't decided which landing zone I'm going to go to though. But yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to this. Oh, the airstrike overview, right? So you're going to click on the dialogue, and you can see these are all of our available airstrikes for this particular scenario. You can see that I have a whole bunch of A4, A4s, F4s, A1s, and F105s. And you'll see here, you can tell that there's rockets, there's bombs, and there's napalm. Here for the F105s, they're all bombs. And the F4s, I have a selection of bombs and napalm, bombs and napalm, bombs and napalm. And the A4s, I have even some that are just shooting with guns. That's what the G means. Guns, rockets, bombs. I don't see any napalm though. No napalm on the A4s at this point. Historically, Cambodia was out of bounds. Yeah, so actually that brings up the point. So I can't send, if I got up to here with an American infantry platoon, I wouldn't be able to cross into it. It would not allow me because there's an exclusion zone. I don't know if I can show you that. Can I show you that? No, that's only in the editor. Yeah, but it won't let me in here because it won't be allowed. So imagine this as just being black hexes all the way through, so that my American troops can't cross. The VC and North Vietnamese troops can go back and forth all they want. My helicopters can cross, but my infantry units can't cross. My tank units can't cross. Yeah, that's exactly it. So the LRRP units, they're kind of like doing it undercover. They're doing it stealthily, and they operated around the Ho Chi Minh trails, which is what all these trails are supposed to be representing, are part of that Ho Chi Minh trail, where they're bringing in troops, they're bringing in supplies to help do the VC. They're U.S. These ones are U.S. There are Australian troops as well, but I didn't include them in this particular scenario, obviously. These are, yeah, totally covert, but they were absolutely capable and did operate in Cambodia along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. But none of your other American units can operate in Cambodia at all. You can try and load a helicopter with an American unit and bring it over here to this landing zone, and it won't let you land. Or it might let you land, but it won't let you unload. The only one that'll let you unload is the LRRP unit, because that's its mission, is to go behind the lines and do interdiction. Check things out. For airstrikes, good question. For the airstrikes, is there a way to know how many will be available at what point in the scenario? This is what I wanted to know to help plan resources. Is there a way to know off the top of my head for each day? No, there isn't a way to see. But you can, every day there's a pool of aircraft, and that pool of aircraft will vary between, I think, in the early days it's like 10 or 15, and then it'll increase up to 30 on the final day because you're going to need all the aircraft on the final day. But no, there isn't a way to know how many are going to be assigned that day. I don't think. And the problem is that the way that the aircraft are doled out is they are also done randomly. So there's a die roll for how many airstrikes or actually you get every turn. Yeah, no, I just don't. No, there isn't a way to know. But as I was saying before, you see this one here. So this is a Skyhawk. It's a smaller plane, so it doesn't have as much, oomph as, say, an F4 does. But it has the advantage of being a multi-strike. So you'll be able to use this aircraft twice. So what does that mean? That means it'll be grayed out the first time you plot it, and then it'll come in, it'll do its thing, and then it's going to come back into the pool. So you'll be able to see that again. Whereas, like, I think F4, they don't have that. So if you use this Napalm F4, you've used it for the rest of the campaign. So it's done. So your decision making is like, do I want to use, this airstrike that is carrying bombs? It'll probably be a good attack, but it will only come once. Whereas if I use this rocket, it has a multi-strike. That means, okay, at least I get two strikes out of that. Sometimes a mix of locals and U.S. or other allies, just from us, what I've read, seen from other interviews in regards to the LRRP units, and to all of our friends, the Phantoms, Thunder Chiefs, Skyhawk. Yeah, exactly, right? These are all classic aircraft for this particular time frame. But some of them are better than others in the sense that these are your most powerful airstrikes, are the Phantoms, for sure, but you only get them once. And the Napalm ones, you got a lot of them, but you only get to use them once. So you have to use them very, very wisely. These ones here, you get to use them twice. These A1s, you get to use them once or twice. Sky Raiders. And these A4s, no Napalm, but you get to use them twice. So you get a whack load of A4s here you can use throughout the game. How do you know when you can use it again? If it's white. If it's grayed out, that means it's no longer available. You've used it and it's no longer going to be available. Alright, there we go. We had a lot of interesting things here said today. That's good. I'm glad. I hope that was useful. We're at 2 hours now, so time to end the session. And on Sunday, we're going to start this. I'm quite excited. So it might be kind of boring, just fair warning. It will be probably kind of boring for the next handful of sessions because I'm just getting used to this particular scenario. But as the action starts happening, it will get very interesting. Especially after day 3, day 4, day 5. Things are going to get terrible. This campaign will totally be a beast. Any spookies? Yes, there are, but not in this scenario, no. I do have a whack load of reinforcements. Where are they? Whole bunch of reinforcements. They include helicopters, they include armored cavalry, they include a whole bunch of infantry, some additional LRRP units, some ARVN troops. I get a whole bunch of stuff. Which is kind of exciting. But at the same time, the VC get a whole bunch of stuff. it's gonna be a gong show for sure. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing this. This will be a lot of fun. I'm super stoked. There are scenarios that have spookies in them. For example, I believe the Loch Ninh scenario, the smaller version, much smaller version, has a spooky in it. And I think there's another one, I don't recall which, has a spooky in it. So spookies operate like helicopters, but it's an on-map aircraft, so it has twice the longevity, on-map longevity. So helicopter typically has 9 turns that it needs to be around in order to refuel. A gunship will have 18 turns, if I recall correctly. So you can fly that thing around for a long time before you need to refuel it. In the smaller scenarios, you'll find that you don't need to refuel it. It's just there if you need it. Actually, Boot Camp 4 has a spooky in it, if I recall correctly. I think. I have to double check. But yeah, I think it does have a spooky in it. Alright. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I hope this was useful, and I hope you learned some new things. Sounds like a fun time, Jason. Thanks for doing what you're doing, making yourself so available to us. It is not expected, more than greatly appreciated. My pleasure. I'm extremely passionate about this game, and I hope that it shows, because I really love doing things and showing what it's capable of and showing all the possibilities and just how much fun you can have in the small and kind of complex scenarios that we have here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you on Sunday. And if you're watching this on YouTube later, if you have any questions, please leave them down below. I went over a lot of material here, so I'm sure there's lots of questions. I'm happy to answer. I did read all the questions that I did get from Skype and John and Compass Rose. I really appreciate that. Or Stipe, sorry. Thank you again. And on that note, we're going to call her good. Take care, smile always, and we'll talk to you soon.